Good evening and welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting for September 6th, 2017. Thank you for the people at WACA for broadcasting this live. And if anyone is recording this meeting, could they let us know now? Seeing none. Mr. Mignani, would you lead us with the
Be happy to.
Pledge of Allegiance?
Actually, I would like to defer former Chief Bob Gonfrati, if you would please lead us. If you would please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, this evening we're going to start off with, I would like to start off by recognizing that former Chief Gonfrati is here and former police officer Carl White is with us this evening, as well as Chief Davis and Lieutenant Bowden and Lieutenant Briggs and a number of other of the officers, and we very much appreciate you being here. This evening we're going to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the loss of one of Ashland's own, Officer Charles Carteret. The summer of 1967 is best remembered by those of us who are old enough to remember and recall as the Red Sox impossible dream summer. The year the Sox won the hearts of millions of New Englanders and were on their way to the World Series for the first time in what seemed like a lifetime to most of us. But in the early morning hours of September 11th of that year, the bask of that glow and the innocence of that time were shattered during an exchange of gunfire in a remote part of town. The series of events resulted in Officer Carteret being fatally shot, while his partner, Officer Bob Gonfrati, sustained serious leg wounds. Due in part to the remote location, the hour of the day, and the fact that they were the only officers on duty, it took a while for police from neighboring communities to come to their aid. Officer Gonfrati recovered from his wounds, would eventually serve as Ashland's police chief for 20 years. Officer Carteret left behind a wife and 4 small children, and he rests eternally in Wildwood Cemetery. We are here to recognize that this evening. I would like to offer, if the board does not mind, a few personal thoughts. Officer Carteret was laid to rest in Wildwood Cemetery next to my uncle, who died the same year as a young man. And that being the case, I've been reminded for most of my life of this occasion, this sad occasion. My parents are now buried across the street, and Mr. Mignani's parents are buried a short distance in the other direction. And all of this brings to mind a few things to me. What a small and tight-knit community we have here in Ashland, how our shared history plays a role in that community, how important it is for us to feel safe in that community, the importance of the police department in playing a role in the safety of the Ashland community, and how fleeting and precious life can be. And moving forward, we have a proclamation that I would ask Mr. Mignani to read, please.
Thank you. If I could have Chief Gonfrati come up to the podium with me, please. Just to add to some of the quick comments that Kyle made, all of us who are police officers, and there are several other retired police officers here that I'd like to acknowledge. Captain Walter Brew from the Auxiliary Police Department, who's also a special police officer in the town. Kyle White, Bob Stevens, my partner for many, many years, Frank Colbert. I have to tell you, there wasn't one day that none of us forgot about the incident that evening, because there was a plaque that leads to the interior of the doors of the police department. And I can assure you that the plaque reminds us every day, and the officers that are here right now, every day, how serious the job is and how fleeting life can be. Your main job, I used to tell the guys down on my roll call, you just go home safely to your family at night or during the day. That's your number one priority as a police officer. Make sure you go home to your families. You're out there sticking your life out there all the time, and we greatly appreciate it. Some people don't, but I do, because we've been there. So thank you. Having said that,
Make sure that you read that on mic, Joe, please.
I will do that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is, whereas on the evening to honor the heroism and to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the loss of one of Ashland's own, Officer Charles E. Carteret. And whereas on September 11th, 1967, Patrolman Charles E. Carteret was fatally shot after serving the community honorably for 4 years. And whereas Officer Carteret was laid to rest at Wildwood Cemetery, leaving behind his wife Claire and his 4 children, Charles Jr., Diane, Paul, and Cheryl Ann. And know, therefore, that we, the Selectmen of the Town of Ashland, request that you keep in mind Patrolman Charles E. Carteret and his family in your thoughts on this occasion. Signed by Carl Haxton, the Chair of on behalf of the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Chief Gonfradi, would you say a few words, please?
Yeah.
I want to thank the board, and I want to thank Carl especially. He offered me an opportunity to say a few words, so I got about a 45-minute speech.
All right, very good.
Only kidding. Actually,
That's
I'm
consistent with everyone else that stands at that podium.
I'm humbled to be here tonight. And again, I'd like to thank the board for the recognition of Charlie Carteret. I think this is something that should be recognized every year, not wait 50 years for it. Charlie was a friend, a father of 4, a husband, and a police officer with a very dry sense of humor, and you had to know him to understand it. The midnight shift of September 11th, 1967 started out no different than many other shifts. We came in, exchanged information with the outgoing shift, jumped in the cruiser, 2 of us, and off we went, do our regular rounds. The town woke up that morning on September 11th to learn that Charlie had paid the ultimate price, which started as a routine motor vehicle check and ended up being a shootout at the OK Corral, known as the Workman's Circle. In the following days and weeks, the town came together and offered unimaginable support to the Carteret family. And we in the police department at the time were eternally thankful for that happening. In the following days and weeks, in the ensuing years, the police department started to change. Better equipment, more officers, and most importantly, training. Because I will sit here and tell you today that if I hadn't had the training that I did have at the academy, I wouldn't be standing here today. And I say to the police officers today, as you pass by, read the monument in front of the station and never forget.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief Gonfradi.
Thank you.
We're going to use this occasion as well for Chief Davis to present some commendations to some of the other officers.
Thank you very much. And I too would like to offer my acknowledgement and thank you to the board for acknowledging the 50th anniversary of Charles Carteret murder. And I also want to take a moment to also offer my sincere, I guess, words of praise and commendation for Chief Gonfradi, a true hero in our profession back then and remains to today, and always will in our hearts, for his actions on that night. In researching and reading about that horrific incident back in 1967, I came across some words written by the board of, the chairman for the Board of Selectmen. And I'd like to paraphrase those words because I think they still ring very true today as we stand here today. Charlie Carteret was a dedicated police officer and truly enjoyed his work. His loss is a great one. All too often, people feel the work of a police officer is of a routine nature, never recognizing the fact their life is on the line at all times. This tragedy occurred during a routine investigation in the early hours of the morning when most of us that are leading normal lives are sleeping. Those words ring just as true today as they did in 1967. Policing's most dangerous missions and encounters are what often start off as very routine in nature: car stops, responding to a domestic disturbance. And as Chief Confrati said, I think police chiefs must think alike, because a lot has changed in policing since Officer Carteret was murdered. Police officers are better educated, they're better trained, equipped with bulletproof vests now, communication equipment that they didn't have back in '67, and information technologies. The one thing that hasn't